Welcome to the show, where we explore the profound values of science, technology, and innovations. And today, we have a great chance to hear a very inspiring story from Dr. Christopher Nguyen. With a career spanning 4 decades, Dr. Christopher has been considered as the devoted lead with the emerging the industrial brain.
If you look at Vietnam's 4,000-year history, I don't think there's been a time quite like this.
Vietnam's economy is growing at over 8% a year. By 2030, the country aims for the digital economy to reach 30% of GDP and a semiconductor industry exceeding 50 billion USD in annual revenue. Vietnam is moving beyond the back end toward an ambitious front-end position in the global value chain.
Việt Nam thì đưa ra cái tầm nhìn đến năm 2045 là nước phát triển có thu nhập cao. Thế muốn biến cái tầm nhìn, cái mục tiêu lớn này thành hiện thực thì phải tạo ra được nguồn lực. Nguồn lực bắt đầu từ tư duy, động lực là bắt đầu từ sự đổi mới, sức mạnh là từ nhân dân và doanh nghiệp. Nhân dân làm nên lịch sử.
Do you think that Vietnam is open enough?
In terms of international egress bandwidth, how well connected Vietnam is to the world, Vietnam ranks number 3 in the world.
Dr. Christopher Nguyen, a former Google engineer and a member of the founding team behind Gmail, is now the founder of Aitomatic, a pioneering company in the field of AI for engineers. From Silicon Valley, he has returned home to bridge technology between Vietnam and the world. 3 decades ago, he helped establish Vietnam's first internet connection in 1997. And today, through AISC and the spirit of open source, he's contributing a new momentum for Vietnam.
Thank you for joining us today. You have mentioned that it is 1 out of 4,000 years opportunities for Vietnam to join the global semiconductor supply chain. Can you explain more about your statement? Because it is a very exciting and very big statement for Vietnam.
Well, I think it's broader than the semiconductor supply chain, but in terms of the economics, the social demographics, even the geopolitics, I think Vietnam has never seen such a confluence of the statistics that show 100 million young people, right? And a growing population at a time when other economies, other advanced economies, are seeing shrinking populations. And so they're all looking to Vietnam for that talent pool. And then also the realignment of the supply chain in the last 5-6 years has favored Vietnam disproportionately, I would say, right? That's why you're seeing a lot of GDP growth and a lot of the trade growth with the US and other countries. And then thirdly, the global realignment. The world is becoming more looking less and less like a unipolar world and more like a multipolar world. And that realignment itself is also the way it's working out, favoring the path that Vietnam is taking, which is really to develop, focus on developing the country and be friendly with every other country, including the neighbors and so on. If you look at Vietnam's 4,000-year history, I don't think there's been a time quite like this. You may have seen it with other countries, but I think Vietnam has been under domination of one force or another, but now for the first time seeing this independence and this growth. Certainly the numbers speak for themselves, but I think it also tells you what the next 10 to 20 years may look like.
So definitely a big population, young population, and a growing economy with curiosity and open to new technology is one of the many advantages of Vietnam in the global semiconductor supply chain. Do you think that Vietnam should join this supply chain as a complement or directly compete with the big player in the world right now? Which one do you think better for Vietnam?
Definitely complementary. And the reason for that is it's not just a nice word. When you have any ecosystem or any company or any market or any economy that is rapidly expanding, it's what people call a positive sum game. Like you and I could be doing exactly the same thing, and we could actually be partners because it's help educate the market and train the market. And you can get your share and I can get my share, and it's expanding. There are markets where it is zero sum. Mature markets at the top of the growth S-curve, they tend to be much more competitive, meaning every time I gain 1% market share, that's at your loss. I think the situation that Vietnam is facing today is very much a positive sum situation.
Right. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, it's what some people call a $0 trillion market.
Yeah.
It looks small now, but it's going to be very, very large, in the near future.
Do you have a lot of contribution to, the growth of technology in Vietnam for the past years? What your advice about Vietnam policies to boost the younger generation into the technology? Should it be, should Vietnam start with the education system? Or it should have promote the technology industry immediately? Which approach is more suitable and useful for Vietnam in this situation?
If I draw lessons from my so-called contributions, there are probably two things that stand out looking back. One is it's largely accidental, and the other is it's largely passion-driven, right? The accidental part is the story that you know about, where I was kind of asked or even assigned to help build what turned out to be Vietnam's first internet connection in 1997. That was because the only guy available with the last name Nguyen was me. That was with Sun, Netscape, and Checkpoint. The part that is passion is the Unicode work, where I was doing my PhD work within semiconductor. My professor, my advisor, Simon Wong, used to be very annoyed because I was missing half the time. Like, he can't find me.
Where were you?
And I was writing software.
Really?
I was writing Vietnamese keyboard software and font and so on. Right. That became adopted into Unicode. So that was... I'm
using it for years now.
Yeah.
I can't live without it.
Exactly. So the impact of that is only meaningful looking back. I was a young man, young kid, just pursuing my passion. I think maybe there's some useful lessons to draw from that, which is a good friend of mine named Ben Horowitz. He's a general partner at a firm called Andreessen Horowitz, which many people know. He gave this address at Columbia University, where he went to school, and he said, young people, do not follow your passion. And he goes explain why that's the case, but his punchline is follow your contribution. What is it that you want to do and what you're good at? The one thing will feed into the other, and it may become your passion. So I think with respect to the Vietnam policy, I wouldn't say make it accidental, right? It can be more deliberate, but it's also the case that everyone should play their own game. There's something that you could be very good at, that you have a comparative advantage in, that I'm not as good at, and vice versa. That's one thing that I've learned trying to replicate Silicon Valley in Hong Kong and then also in Malaysia. By and large, as a replication of Silicon Valley, those efforts have failed. But they have had their own successes. And those successes have mapped to what each place is special at.
Semiconductors are no longer just chips embedded deep inside electronic devices. They are the infrastructure of technological power, determining who controls innovation, who drives growth, and who is left behind. Today, global powers are investing hundreds of billions of dollars to secure their position in this new value chain. From the United States to Europe, industrial policy has returned. The United States has launched the CHIPS Act, committing $52.7 billion to bring strategic chip manufacturing back home. Europe is also making its bet with the European Chips Act, aiming to mobilize more than 43 billion euros to strengthen its semiconductor capabilities. In the global technology race, AI and semiconductors are reshaping the world's economic order. As the United States-China trade and technology tensions escalate, Southeast Asia, particularly Vietnam, is emerging as a new destination for the global technology industry. The ASEAN semiconductor market is projected to reach nearly $118 billion in 2025. Vietnam alone has attracted more than 170 foreign-invested semiconductor projects this year, with total registered capital approaching $11.6 billion. These record figures reflect growing confidence among global corporations in Vietnam's long-term potential.
I really see that Vietnam has a real opportunity to take the leading role in the region in AI development. Not only Vietnam is the users of AIs, Vietnam can also contribute to the AI industry of the world.
Việt Nam chúng ta có một cái vinh dự là có khoảng 1.000 chuyên gia cao cấp về trí tuệ nhân tạo và bán dẫn đến họp hội thảo tại Việt Nam. Thì thông điệp của anh nói rằng là các bạn đến Việt Nam, các bạn sẽ thấy thức ăn thì rất là ngon, đất nước thì rất là đẹp, truyền thống rất là lâu. Nhưng Việt Nam là điểm đến tốt nhất cho các bạn hợp tác về trí tuệ nhân tạo và bán dẫn.
For Vietnam, the opportunity is not simply to become a manufacturing destination. It is to move deeper into the value chain, where knowledge, research, and systemic capability define national position. These strategic connections are now taking shape. Here are images from AISC 2025, an international conference on artificial intelligence and semiconductors, where Vietnam is connecting with global experts, research institutions, and technology companies. Co-organized by the National Innovation Center and Aitomatic, the event shows that Vietnam is not only joining the conversation, but is gradually positioning itself within global technology networks.
It's very impressive to see the dynamic of Vietnam, how quickly it is developing over the last years. And with regards to AI and innovation in particular, it is interesting how Vietnam is also in a very short period of time getting a footprint in this, in the competition against other players in this area. Vietnam is for sure one of the countries which can gain a competitive edge in this.
I observed the Vietnam has very high qualified potential of the software engineers. So on the utilizing that kind of competitive advantage, I think that you will be able to step in global value chain of the AI as well as the semiconductor within a very short time.
But the real opportunity isn't about Vietnam becoming a destination. It's about how far Vietnam can climb within the global semiconductor value chain and what resources will propel this nation forward in the new technological era.
How do you imagine yourself and Aitomatic role in Vietnam, where the country is trying their best to join the industry?
Well, I think there's one aspect that's deliberate, and the other is follows what we already do. The deliberate part is, for example, helping to set up this conference, the AI Semiconductor Conference. And that's through largely a very small team at Aitomatic, together with the NIC team, building that. The folks that we were able to invite, the world-class leaders and researchers and so on, are first and foremost in our network, our colleagues, our friends, our business partners, and so on. And they are doing good work on their own, right? So I think having the network of Aitomatic to bring that in has been helpful to this conference. The other part where we're just doing our own thing, and then it becomes a contribution, but not like in the sense of deliberate planning, which is we specialize in something called domain expert agents. And we apply that to something called the industrial economy. An example of that is semiconductors. Because it is very leading edge technology, a lot of the processes in that particular space requires a lot of very smart and very experienced people working very hard. So when Aitomatic can help solve is the shortage of expertise in that industry. Turns out, people may think AI is replacing people. Our AI is being applied where there are not enough people, right? Because in these fields, particularly in the US, in the last 20, 30 years, people have left the field, right?
For example?
Semiconductor, IC design, manufacturing, and so on. So with the reindustrialization of America, bringing back such advanced technologies, we're finding that we're going to be short of experts, even short of workers. Deloitte had a study where they say over the next 5 years, we're going to be short about 1 million people in the semiconductor industry. So Vietnam will experience the same thing, just like the US, just like Japan, and so on. So our technology that we learn from the expert, and then the agents will automate some of the things that the expert do, that can be tremendously helpful. I like to say that we're not building superhuman intelligence. We're building superhuman availability, superhuman consistency, and superhuman scalability. That's enough to make a big difference in the economy.
I really love the idea, actually. That's some kind of, it's not idea, but it's some kind of like innovation, like to help, refueling what we are like of. Especially nowadays, we human, we have limitation physically and psychologically. So that's why it is important to know that. So that's something that you will develop and you bring to Vietnam.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. Is we just do what we do, and there's a good customer base in Japan, in the US, and so on. And as Vietnam adopt those technologies, as Vietnam bring the manufacturing industry up, I believe some of our tools can be very useful to industry here as well.
You think that Vietnam is open enough to welcome all of those new technology into its society and economy?
That's a really good question. I think even before I think about how to answer that question, I want to share my conviction that it is in technology application that you have the greatest societal benefit. It's not in the invention. Because invention is in a lab or maybe one single company. The countries and the economies that can scale the application will benefit the most. And Vietnam is actually a great example in terms of international egress bandwidth. That is how well connected Vietnam is to the world. If you divide it by per capita, by 100 million people, then Vietnam ranks number 3 in the world. US, number 1, Japan, number 2, and Vietnam is number 3, ahead of China, India, Indonesia. So Vietnam has a lot of experience applying technology, right? And you've seen the effect of that connectivity on lots of people. A lot of young people that have never been outside Vietnam speak perfect English. Where does that come from? Well, the high bandwidth that's available in YouTube, right? So I'm very excited about sort of the ability for an economy to scale, not just certainly pay attention to manufacturing, pay attention to AI, semiconductor, and so on, but also pay a lot of attention to making sure that the benefits of digitalization of AI spread throughout society. And that's where the scalable impact is going to be.
As semiconductors are identified as a national strategic technology, Vietnam is facing a critical challenge: human capital. According to the latest government direction, Vietnam is reviewing plans to increase its semiconductor workforce target from 50,000 to 100,000 engineers by 2030 to meet domestic demand and move deeper into the global supply chain.
I talk about the Vietnam trend. It's the human resource. It's not only the number of the people, but the character of the people born and raised in the country, developing country. We are very resilient. We're a hard worker. We put the limit. We not give up easy.
Globally, the semiconductor industry is facing a shortage of hundreds of thousands of engineers, especially in design, R&D, and system integration. This is both a challenge and a strategic opportunity for Vietnam if the right talent can be prepared in time. In this context, overseas Vietnamese professionals are seen as a critical bridge between Vietnam and the world's leading technology hubs.
Really, in the past 12 to 18 months, certainly 2 years, you've seen a transformation in terms of the policy leadership. Resolution 57, Vietnam can be a big bridge builder, connecting builders and researchers and leading-edge professionals in the global economy with that of Vietnam.
Following government directives, Vietnam is developing special incentive policies to attract chief engineers, leading experts, and top science and technology talent, those capable of designing and leading national strategic technology systems. The global Vietnamese intellectual network is identified as a key driving force in realizing Vietnam's science and technology development goals toward 2030 under Resolution 57.
Có nhiều cách để tiếp cận, ví dụ như tiếp cận những người như là những nhà khoa học hay là những nhà nghiên cứu ở các trường đại học hay là các công ty Mỹ ấy, hoặc thậm chí là nước ngoài ấy, họ muốn đến Việt Nam làm việc cũng khá nhiều. Cộng đồng Việt Nam làm AI mà ở nước ngoài nó cũng rất là nhiều, cho nên có thể tiếp cận những nhóm này. Nhưng mà về lâu về dài thì mình nghĩ là nên đầu tư vào cái mảng đại học và sau đại học để cho những cái trường đại học và các viện nghiên cứu của Việt Nam là phải lên được top đầu của ít nhất là châu Á.
You see that I come back to Vietnam, I wish to share my learning and I wish to work with the young Vietnamese people.
The question is no longer whether Vietnam has potential, but how quickly it can connect and mobilize global intellectual resources on its path toward 2030.
We have seen so many AI breakthrough right now, and what is the most exciting AI development for you?
That's a really hard thing to select. It's like,
Too many.
It's like, who's your favorite child? I can divide that into near term, medium term, long term.
Yeah.
I think the near term, without a doubt, agentic technologies I'm most excited about because I'm building it. So it's my favorite child in the near term. I think the ability for AI to not just give you good question and answers, but also help you solve problems. I'm coding, I'm still hacking. One example of an agent that I use a lot is Cursor, right, for coding.
Yeah.
And Cursor now has the ability to mull over a problem and then test the code and then run it and see the bug and then say, based on this, it'll fix the problem and so on. I can walk away for 5 minutes, I come back, the problem is solved. This is not a dream. This is happening. It happened last night, it's happening tomorrow. So we're building something like that for industrial operations.
Right.
So that, I think that's my favorite immediate term.
Yeah.
I think in the next near term that my favorite technology is actually not LLMs, but improvements over the efficiencies of LLM. There are emerging techniques. A lot of people don't realize that, in fact, the large language models, AI today, is very inefficient. It's extremely inefficient, but that's normal. Anytime you deploy new technology, it's not the most efficient version.
Right.
And then it get more efficient over time.
Exactly.
So there are other techniques like trading space for time, or caching, or doing essentially what a whole class of techniques called sparsity. These are things that are very exciting to not transform AI in terms of fundamental operations, AI R&D, but it can make AI a lot more efficient. And guess what? When it becomes more efficient, we use it more, right? And so that has large impact on society. Longer term, in terms of AI, again, I'm kind of a nerd, so I like future architectures that people are thinking about, things that will completely replace today's AI. I'm very confident 10 years from now, we'll look back and we'll laugh at the things that we're trying to make. Large language models, large vision models today are being forced to do things that I think are at their limits, that are not natural to them. There are better architectures, right? One idea of building in something that has a separate world model from the executive function that is objective driven, very much like agentic frameworks today, except modern AI architectures. I think certainly 5 years out, we'll see it fundamentally different and fundamentally better than anything we have today.
What is the craziest AI application in the next 5 years you could ever think of? Can you share it with me?
It may not be the craziest application, but it could maybe be one of the more controversial things that essentially replicate you, your awareness, your knowledge, and so on, even ultimately your being, right? And things like that could last longer than your human life here.
Wow.
In other words, you could use AI to connect to people. Certainly, there could be exciting applications like I could talk to Beethoven, right? But I could also talk to my mother who passed away, right? So these are things that are sort of challenging, not the technology, but challenging our ideas of selves, right? And identity and what it means to be human. I think those applications will come, right? And we will have to grapple with them as a society as what do we want this technology to do for us and with us and about us?
Is that something a scary picture in the future, or like it should be something exciting for us?
I think in some sense, the future is always scary. But then when you get there, it's not. The airplane was extremely scary to people, right? In fact, it did kill a lot of people. My favorite example is, I believe it's a Charlie Chaplin black and white movie, where for the first time, many moviegoers saw a train coming at them, right? In a theater.
Right.
And you know what happened? People ran for their lives. The future is scary in that sense. But it turns out that as we get there, and it's not just us, but our children and grandchildren and so on, it will be very normal to them. Right. So I think we must not judge the future by the sensibilities of the past or even of today.
There's a lot of things to think about it, you know? Yeah. As you are a physics guy, I know you are in physics, and if you can talk to Einstein right now, how do you explain AI to Einstein? Do you think that he will be shocked?
How would I explain AI to Einstein? I think in one sense, Einstein would have the intellect not to be surprised.
Not to be
but
surprised.
He may be shocked. He would not be surprised in the sense of, is this possible? Is it feasible? Yeah, somebody like Einstein is well capable of fathoming something like that. But I think the shock may come from the speed of it, and the shock may come from the applications of it.
The application.
Right? Einstein supposedly said, God does not play dice with the universe, right? But it may be that AI is playing dice with humanity, right? So in that sense, he may be quite disturbed.
Yeah. So Einstein once told us, like, imagination gets us everywhere, right? It's not the knowledge, but the imagination. What kind of role imagination play in AI development for the world that we are seeing right now? Very fast speed of development. And
there's a story that Steve Jobs once gave. He talked about how human mobility compared to birds and cheetahs and so on is actually very low, right? But then somebody thought to measure a human on a bicycle, and it's extremely efficient. So then he says the computer is like the bicycle for the mind. Using that analogy, I think of AI as a rocket for the mind. The way that a lot of us are using AI today, we're still trying to figure out how to use it. There was a dinner that I was at last night, and we were discussing how to use AI, and we just decided that it was sort of a right way to use it and a wrong way to use it. You don't want to use AI just to ask questions for truth. There's no truth there, right? But you do want to use AI as a tool. What you do every day, what I do every day, can always be classified into two major groups of function. One I call the executive function, and the other is a labor function. Let's say you're preparing a presentation. You have ideas about what that should be, who the audience is, what your point trying to make, right? And that's the executive function, right? But the labor function is creating the slides and pictures and so on. Now, right now, we have to switch between the two tasks, right? And it turns out the labor function is slowing you down a lot. If you can concentrate on the executive function, the specification of what it is that you want, the goals, and then let AI deliver it, and then you say, check it. Okay, does it resonate with my audience and so on? It can be a very powerful assistant, right? Sure. So your productivity, let's say a year ago, you would have taken like a week's time to create that presentation. You can cut it down to an hour or two. Creativity in that sense is boosted because now you're focused on that more creative executive function. So I think that's the right way to use AI.
Are we close to the day that AI can be self-aware?
I would like to answer that question in the way I understand it. Sometimes I get to the professorial mode and I would ask, do you even understand the question? We use words like consciousness, self-awareness, as though they are self-evident. But when you try to define it, you realize there's different definitions. What is consciousness, right? If by self-awareness, what you mean is in your mental model, there's the concept of a Christopher, there's a concept of a hand, there's a concept of a nose, there's a concept of cloud, and there's a concept of yourself. Then absolutely AI can be self-aware.
And that is in the very near future.
It's already in the present, right? In other words, in a model, particularly in robotics, right? When you have AI in robotics, a robot that is moving around or even a vehicle that's moving around must be aware of itself. It has to be aware of itself so that when it's moving around, it knows it's navigating the environment, it doesn't hit the wall and things like that. If you define self-awareness in that very mechanical sense, it's already happened. You decide self-awareness in some more mystical sense, then we have to sit down and say, well, okay, let's agree on what we're talking about. Let me say it this way. I am of the school that believes we make too much mystery out of being human. I think a lot of what we do is very much mechanical and electrochemical. And I know that doesn't resonate well with a lot of people that believe there is a strong spiritual or even religious component to human consciousness. But I think we can settle that argument. We can split the difference by saying that there are many things that we think are mysterious about humanity and humanness that we will discover not to be that mysterious. It'll be very much functional and mechanical.
I like it because it opens something new that I have never heard of. I should think about it. It opened a new direction to look at the questions and concerns. Thank you so much. I really love it.
Yeah, thank you.